You know, the pipeline people claim that once it's underground, you won't even worry about it, but you've got a ticking time bomb. Probably once a week I have a bad dream about the pipeline coming through and just destroying what, as you'll see later, is some very, very beautiful land.
It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. I have to move from my house. I will not live with this pipeline in my backyard. And this is land that's been in the family since the 1800s, early 1800s. When you know how bad it is and what the possibilities are, you don't want to live in any of these things. That's why we fight so hard.
I was born in these hills. I'm not very educated. I did graduate high school, but I've always been in touch with the hunting and fishing side of living in the mountains. I've floated down the rivers and the creeks and the streams. I've hunted bait most of my life. But no, I've never, and I still don't consider myself as an activist. I'm somebody who cares about something more than myself. I care about the butterflies and the bees and the trees and the leaves, and I know, like I said, we're tied into this.
People who live here know the land. They know how prone it is to landslides. They know that the karst terrain means that disruption in one place can cause disruption in the water and the land for miles away. We know how steep the slopes are. And so since the pipeline was first announced, everyone has said, this is a bad idea. And lo and behold, we've been proven right every step of the way.
The Mountain Valley Pipeline is a 303-mile-long, 42-inch diameter pipeline that has been under construction since the beginning of 2018. And this pipeline, if it's completed, will take natural gas from the Marcellus and Utica shale regions of northern West Virginia down through West Virginia and Virginia to end in Pittsylvania County, Virginia. 225 miles of the 303 miles go through very landslide-prone landscape. What I can conjecture was the reason they chose this path is because it goes through primarily rural areas with a very elderly population, and many of the areas are low income. So these are people who don't have a lot of power to fight a big corporation like this.
I can't personally afford a dozen lawyers to fight my case, but an oil company or a pipeline company or a timber company, coal company can.
If they hit up against somebody who can't afford a lawyer, they'll just go the next property over, and that person will receive some small compensation, and the person who resisted will have, their water disturbed, but have no compensation whatsoever.
MVP was supposed to implement these erosion control and sediment control structures that were not very effective, and in some cases really disastrous consequences in terms of soil erosion.
You ever heard the term shit runs downhill? Well, silt does too. Anything below that pipeline comes into my drinking water. They didn't have up the proper sedimentation, no silt fencing, none of that stuff, no approved fencing up. And the mud that come up into my well was so heavily concentrated that it burnt my pressure switch up, it stopped my check valve up. But done over $1,000 worth of damage. But I was a total of 18 days with no water. 18 days, I would go to this creek right here, Sinking Creek, which runs on down my houseway. There's a low water bridge there, and I would take a couple barrels down there and fill the barrels up with a bucket and a rope, and I did that for 18 days. On day 16, I had someone come and take my cows. What cows I had left, it was still alive, because I had some die from drinking when my pond started drying up, they started drinking the heavy water at the bottom, and they died. My pigs died from the same heavy water. We used to sell a lot of jelly. pick a lot of berries, and you know, that's how we bought our kids' school clothes and stuff with the money. But when the pipeline come to town, we couldn't pick the berries no more along the roadside because they were so full of dust. So that was also money that we lost. And you know, here it is berry season again, they're getting ready to happen. And guess what? All the berries along the road is no good. This project has had a lot of impact on a lot of folks, not only me.
An assumption often that people in Appalachia are fatalistic. They just give over to God or give over to fate what may happen. And scholars like Stephen Fisher and Barbara Ellen Smith have documented the myriad of ways that this is absolutely false, that everyday Appalachian people have fought back. One of my favorite examples of Appalachian resistance is the story of Ollie Combs, who in eastern Kentucky in 1964 laid down in front of a bulldozer so that she could prevent the strip mining of her land for coal. And even deeper than that, of course, we have resistance from the indigenous peoples who lived here pre-settlement.
I think direct action is just a piece of the larger puzzle. So with direct action, when you when you make them take more time, it leaves time for people to work in courts, to get them to make permits take longer, to have time for people to sue them. So it is just taking immediate action to stop something or to halt something or to make something happen.
We recently had some old folks. They blocked a road with this super jacked up car. It was all painted up with animals and things and protect what you love.
They were blocking the access to a pipeline work site. The windows were welded shut. And then there were two women on rocking chairs who were also locked into the car.
It's got a thing built into it so I can chain in on it. And it will be their puzzle to figure out how to get it out.
So we're here because it must stop, and every other system has failed us. So this is what we're reduced to, is physically stopping progress for however many hours we can. And it's a good place to be.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved like the tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We're standing for our mountains. We shall not be moved. Standing for our mountains, we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
We have children here today, and we have old people, and they're going to probably behave differently than if it was a bunch of scruffy Earth First activists that aren't even from these parts. Like, we've been challenged about that already today. Somebody local drove up, any of you from around here? And I'm like, I'm from Floyd. It's like a quarter mile that way. Because there's a lot of assumptions that more radical actions are taken by rabble-rousing riffraff that, you know, don't have a personal investment in it.
One of the things you'll hear from local people is that they resist in all the ways they can. They'll be part of a funeral procession. They will hike in supplies to someone who's staffing a blockade, but they can't necessarily risk their livelihoods by risking arrest. And so one of the things that happens is that sometimes the people who are committing to the arrestable actions, locking down to equipment, locking down to a disabled vehicle in the right-of-way, for example. They may be young people who are climate justice, people who care about climate justice from all over. And so the company will try to portray the entire resistance to the pipeline as out-of-state resistance. Make no mistake, local people have led the fight since the announcement of Mountain Valley Pipeline in 2014.
You know, it's just really frustrating after trying all these different means of objecting and standing up to this, insane and inhumane pipeline, to find that the process doesn't work. Our leaders have failed us miserably, and we're here in an act of desperation, pretty much, knowing that there's a crisis and everything we've done hasn't worked yet.
I'm scared, not like of what's going to happen to me today, but because I want to be right about the children and about the old folks, because it's hard for me to watch people I love being hurt by authority. And I know they're choosing it, and I know that it's an honorable act, and I know that it is suffering without retaliation for the sake of a cause to achieve a goal. I know all of that. And my heart says, don't hurt my friends.
Which side are you on?
Please defend the people, the residents. The residents here,
Which
please
side
defend them.
are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Good afternoon.
Would you like
Sergeant
to join
Brown,
us
Vernon
in
County
prayer?
Police Department. This time, this assembly has been declared unlawful. In the name of the Commonwealth of Virginia, command all persons so assembled to immediately and peaceably disperse. If you fail to do so, you will be arrested.
They showed up and they twiddled their thumbs quite a bit. It was really complex about how they were going to try to go at this situation. These old folks held off work for 15 hours. Our state police, our local sheriff's office, you know, they show up, they arrest folks because they think that they're doing right, because FERC has approved this project. FERC don't know these mountains, and they've never seen these caves, and they've never seen my farm, and they've never tasted this water, and they've never never swam in this stream. What gives them the right to put my life in danger and my neighbors' lives in danger? What gives FERC and the DEQ the right? What David Paler? What gives you the right to tell me I got to find an alternative source when I got some of the best damn water that there is to drink? It's better than Franklin County's. I know this. I've made good wine.
The hope for stopping this pipeline is more people getting involved and raising their voices about the problems with this pipeline, and that we don't need more fossil fuel infrastructure.
We need more people to join us so that we can do it more and more and more, because we want to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline.